Hi, I'm Ariam, and this is my reading vlog for the last Herald Mage series by Mercedes Lackey. So this series is part of the world of Valdemar, which chronologically in the books starts from a series that's been published recently, but publication order, it starts from the Arrows of the Queen trilogy, and I definitely think that that is where you need to start. And really, after that, you should read The Last Herald Mage. But I didn't. I didn't for a long time, and then I tried to, and I DNF'd it. But a lot of what happens in The Last Herald Mage is actually really important to books that chronologically happen after The Last Herald Mage. So I wanted to try to read it again just so I could understand those books and what's happening in them more. Like, even though I like them, and even though in the parts that were important, I, for the most part, had a vague idea of what's going on. In the Winds of Change series, I did not understand at all, but I wanted to try again. And I've started. I'm now on page 94, which is 26% of the way through, and I'm like right before the scene, I'm pretty sure, where I DNF'd last time. And I don't remember how old I was when I read this last time. I was definitely still in high school. But I remember what I thought was, okay, wait, before I start telling you what I thought. So the world of Valdemar, it follows, mostly follows this one country called Valdemar. There are other countries that are called other things. And they're ruled by a monarch, but they also have these people called the Heralds. And the Heralds are moral. The reason we know that they're moral is that they're magically chosen by a horse, by a magic horse. And they kind of help the monarch rule the land. They travel all around this country, and if there's anything that a judge couldn't deal with, for instance, they'll deal with it. If there's like a village that needs help defending itself from bandits, they'll deal with that, stuff like that. And so in the last Herald Mage series, we have our main character, Vaniel. And Vaniel lives with his family. They're an aristocratic family, and he feels that nobody really, except his older sister, loves him. He feels like everybody hates him, like nobody understands him, like even his older sister doesn't truly understand him. And his father really is super abusive. And he has an aunt, his father's sister, who is a herald. And he gets sent to her. And so when I was reading this book for the first time, she's called Saville. I thought that Vaniel was whiny, and I thought that Saville was a jerk. And my opinion on Saville being a jerk has still not changed, but I am better able to deal with it. I think because when I read this book had a huge impact on me when I first read it. Not this book, this series had a huge impact on me when I first read it, like the whole world of Valdemar. And I was very enraptured with the idea of heralds, because why wouldn't you be? Imagine how wonderful governments would be if everyone in them were moral. Wouldn't that be like an amazing world? Unfortunately, it's just a dream. But I was very enraptured with the idea of heralds being these moral people, and I couldn't really get into my head that even very moral people can make really big mistakes. I still think Saville is a jerk. And part of the reason is that I believe that part of the reason why she's such a jerk is because Mercedes Lackey, she has opinions that I do not agree with about how to treat people who have been victims. I do agree that you have to show these people how to take themselves out of the mindset of being a victim. I think that's obviously it's incredibly important because if you're left in the mindset of being a victim, you're more likely to be a victim again and again. Like, it's just for the benefit of the person. It's not for the benefit of anyone else. Even just for the benefit of the person, they won't be a victim again and again. But Mercedes LeKay and I disagree strongly on how to do it. She is, like, not, like, obviously not the same thing works for every person, and I'm sure her way works for people. Sorry. I'm sure her way does work for people, but it's very, like, kind of get your chin up. And I think that does influence how she writes Savile at this moment, even though Savile is only vaguely aware of what Vanielle has gone through. And that makes it worse because she's vaguely aware and she's still acting like a jerk. And Vanielle, I don't find him whiny anymore. Like, I think when I read this the first time, or tried to read it, that is, I was not in a place where, like, you have different places in your life. Like, you develop and change. And when I first read it, I was not in a place where I wanted to understand Vanielle, maybe. Like, I can understand why I thought he was whiny. Because his abuse is not, like, for the most part, it's not physical. It's just his father wants him to be one person and then, like, emotionally abuses him when he's not that. And so I think emotional abuse is something that's really weird, hard to understand. Like, there's a saying among lawyers, apparently, I got this from a memoir, that if there's no bruise, you lose, like, in cases of abuse. And that's because emotional abuse is very hard to understand. And it's not like I didn't understand that what his father did was bad. I just couldn't understand why he was so upset about it, or didn't want to understand why he was so upset about it. And I also, like, had a hard time understanding about how he viewed the rest of his family. Because I don't know why. I mean, I can kind of see why, but, like, the rest of his family that's not his father, they do love him. He just isn't able to see it because of how far apart they are from understanding him, and because they're not very good at showing love. I did struggle with understanding why he felt that way, and that's why I think I thought he was whiny, and now I don't, and I think he's actually pretty well written. Like, you can totally see, like, why he is the way he is. The thing I don't like, though, is, like, in all the Valdemar books, and this also happens in the Mallory Tower books by Enid Blyton, all of the people in these schools, because the Heralds go to school, and they have this big complex where the Heralds, the children of nobles, the children of aristocrats that were sent over, healers in training, bards in training, are sent to school. So they're jerks. Like, someone comes into the classroom for the first time and they never say anything to them. And I think in the Valdemar books, it's because Mercedes LeKay wants us to spend time in the people's minds, like the characters' minds that have just come in and are new. But it just makes everyone else seem like a jerk. In Mallory Towers, by the way, they are definitely jerks. Like, I could never get through a Mallory Towers book just because of how awful and mean the characters were. Anyways, that's what I think 94 pages through. I hope that I continue to like it, because I'm planning to read the whole trilogy because I really want to understand what happens in the Winds of Change series. So, 177 pages into the Magic's Palm, which is the first book of the last Herald Mage trilogy, and that's about halfway through. And my theory about Savile acting the way she is because of Mercedes LeKay's opinion on mental health is wrong. Savile does admit that she's not very good at knowing how to act with people, and they do realize that Danielle needs help. However, it does not change the fact that Savile is a jerk. Like, there's a difference between not being very good with people and literally telling your nephew that you don't like him. Like, what? Um, I'm having a lot of complaint about this book, which makes it seem like I'm not enjoying it. Let's put all my complaints out there. That was number one, though. Like, yeah, like I'm going back to like my first thoughts when I DNF'd this book is like we're supposed to like Savile, you know, like we're not supposed to hate her. Like, yeah, sure, she's not that good with people, but she's a jerk. She's outright just a jerk. Um, so the second problem I have is just like, why are 12 and 13-year-olds having sex in this book? Like, in what world? Like, and not in a like preachy way, but like, apparently it's normal in this world for 12 and 13-year-olds to have sex. Like, what? That's not actually normal, but okay. Um, so, and my next problem is how fast the romance is going and how fast everyone is okay with it. It's like Mercedes LeKay is like, she wants us to be convinced that this romance is perfect, but like, guys, Vaniel just found out that there are gay people in existence 2 months ago, and now his boyfriend is moving in with him, and everyone thinks this is totally healthy, except Savile, who's a little bit cautious about it. There are things I agree with Savile in. She's a jerk, but at least she's slightly more cautious than everyone else. But she also encourages his boyfriend to move in with him. Oh, guys, what is going on? But it's like Mercedes LeKay wants us to know that this romance is perfect, and how is it supposed to be perfect when he just found out that gay people exist 2 months ago, much less that he's gay? There's gonna be problems. But I don't want the problems to show up, actually, because one of the things that is really frustrating about me about this book, this and the romance being so prominent are what are really frustrating me about this book, and that and that there's no plot. There's basically no plot. We get a few hints of plot, but there's basically no plot, and right now, halfway through, I don't see any evidence of plot being more a major part of this book, and I know it's going to be because I know vaguely, like I said, we get hints in a lot of the other books about what the ending of this trilogy is going to be. So I know there's going to be plot to tell us how they got there. And this book is called The Last Herald. The series is called The Last Herald Mage, and Vaniel is the main character, and he's the one on the covers. So, and he's neither a herald nor is he a mage yet. So, both of those things are going to happen. But, and after, but neither of them have happened yet, and there's no plot, and it's really, really frustrating me. I do still like some parts of this book. Like, there was one scene where, so Vaniel has to hide that he's gay, and so he and his boyfriend decided to do, and Savile is both of their guardians, and so they decided to do like a fake fight, and obviously they called Savile because she's both of their guardians, and she tells them off, she totally knows what's going on, and that scene, I don't know if it was good or I just thought Savile was hot, but I did really enjoy that scene. And there were a few other scenes I liked, but at the same time, I'm so frustrated that the plot is not happening. So I hope that next time I come back to you and I'm like, there's a ton of plot happening, but not so much that it totally erases all of the emotional stuff, because that would be bad writing. Anyways, see you! Okay, I was just complaining that there is no plot, but the plot just started. And so I knew from reading the other books that in this book we have Vaniel, who is the last Herald Mage, as the series title is. And I remembered the name Bard Stefan and the name Tylendel. And so right now his boyfriend is Tylendel. And I also remembered in the other books that there was a herald his who has stopped being a herald, which almost never happens because the heralds are literally chosen by the gods because of how moral they are. And I think it's Tylendel. Like what he's doing right now, I think it's going to be Tylendel. I don't know what's going to happen between him and Vaniel, but that's crazy. Yes, I'm in pajamas, but I'm just popping in to say, like, Vaniel has his companion now. We all knew the companion of the magical horses. We all know that was going to happen, called the last Herald Mage, not a spoiler. And she's like protecting him from everyone. She's like, no, nobody can come near him. You do not know how to deal with people in any form or way. And she is so right. Like, oh my God. They're just, like, every single thing that went wrong in this book is because none of the heralds have communication skills. And I get that that makes sense because they're the heralds that are in Haven. They're not the heralds that are going out. Haven is the capital city. They're not the heralds that are going out around Valdemar and actually dealing with random people. So obviously they're going to be the ones with less communication skills because for that reason is one of the reasons they were chosen to stay in Haven. But oh my God, they're so dumb. Like they're Tylendel has this big problem, but other than that, he's a mainly healthy 16-year-old. Mentally healthy, I mean. Like, he had a bit of a traumatic past, but he does have a traumatic past, and he has this big problem that's kind of connected to his traumatic past. And his mentor goes to someone else because she's like, I know I don't really know how to deal with people. And he's like, bring him to the brink of anger every time and then let him calm himself down. How dumb are you? Oh my God. Like, if I was Tylendel's mentor, what I would do is I would sit down with him however many times it take, and obviously I would let him talk it out, but also one thing I would do would be really important to me is like help him make a list of how he can help himself, how I can help him, how are there other people who can help him, how they nobody has any communication skills. Maybe Vaniel's companion will teach Vaniel at least communication skills, because Tylendel is the one with the best communication skills, and he's 16. But so that's all I have to say. I'm going crazy over how bad their communication skills are, and I'm glad that finally someone in the book is pointing it out. Anyways, yeah, that's all. So I finished Magic's Pawn, and there hasn't really been any plot, which I suppose I shouldn't be that surprised. Like, I didn't go into this thinking there was going to be a lot of plot because I know that in the world of Valdemar, especially in the older books in general, you have emotional development book 1, book 2 emotional development, book 3 all the plot. But I had been expecting more plot. I didn't expect all the plot to be shoved at the end, which is what happened. However, I was enjoying it much more after the romance was out of the way. Like, it just, how fast the romance happened, or rather how fast everyone else was pushing it to happen, bothered me. Like, from my perspective, I understand that it's a life bond, which is basically soulmates. So I do understand that it has to happen fast because they see each other and that's it. But it's not fun for me to read about. I don't really read romances, but if I read a romance, I want them to take forever to fall in love. I need it to be a slow burn. I need to see them get to know each other. I can't just have it be like, and then when the other people who don't know it's a life bond are like, oh yes, you just met each other in Vaniel, you just found out that gay people exist. You should move in together. It really bothered me. But after the romance was out of the way, even though the book continued to be about Vaniel's emotional healing and emotional development, I did enjoy it a lot more. It definitely was not my favorite Valdemar book, but I didn't dislike it. I think if like it's a medium book. I don't hate it. I don't really like it. Yeah, other things I have to say about it is that there was this thing of Vaniel's dreams, which I found really interesting, but I really wish they had impact on this book, and I know that they're going to have only impact on the last book. All the teachers in here were horrible except for Moondance, and basically all of the teachers, all the adults in this book are teachers, and they're all so bad at teaching. The only one who was good at teaching was Moondance. He was the only one who A, explained stuff, and B, didn't reject Vaniel just because he didn't behave perfectly all the time. And nobody even pays attention to Moondance as a teacher because he's a healer. So how can a healer be a teacher? But like, oh my god. Valdemar needs someone to teach teaching because none of them know how to teach. Except for Moondance. And one thing I found very interesting, last thing I have to say about this book, is Savil's relationship within Vaniel's father. So as I said, Vaniel's father emotionally abuses him, and he comes to Savile in a very messed up emotional state because of that and because of physical abuse he endured from his weapons teacher that his father not encouraged but was like, it's okay. And Savile, this is like more of an evil fantasy world. There's no, if Savile left her home at 14, she hasn't really ever seen her brother since then, but she still loves him, obviously. He's still her brother. And at the same time, she does recognize that he hurt Vaniel really, really badly, and he did some really messed up things to Vaniel. So I just found her relationship in her own head was within very interesting because she has to balance these two things. Like, she never stops loving her brother, right? But she also knows that she is now Vaniel's guardian and she has to protect him from her brother. And I I thought that was the most interesting part of the book, honestly. Maybe I just shouldn't be reading books about teenagers. No, I didn't think. So, I'm 100. I started Magic's Promise, the second book in the series. It finally came out from the holes in the library. I'm 108 pages into it. And like right away, I already enjoy it more than the first book. So it actually, I didn't read the synopsis in the back at all before getting into it. I don't usually when it's the next book in a series. But so we actually start 12 years after the last book ended. So the last book ended with our main character, Vaniel, getting to a point where he's emotionally and physically recovered enough from what has happened to him also in his life and also in that book to be able to actually start making goals, start, like not just be mired in emotional distress and physical distress. And so now we're 12 years later and a lot has changed, both politically and in Vaniel. Politically, we're less concentrating on right now, but it's definitely a thing that is impacting Vaniel, and we can see that it's going to impact the world. It's definitely taking a bigger part than the last book. And as you know, I didn't enjoy that the last book had basically no plot. So even though this book has so far not had any plot too, the fact that we are getting this political impact is making me happy. I am enjoying it. And I don't really mind actually that we're not getting a lot because of we can see the impact it's having. Like, I think maybe one of my problems with the last book is that for me it was hard that Vanielle was just in this little circle. It wasn't unrealistic, but it was just kind of confining for me even. So I'm really glad that we're getting this. And Vanielle, more importantly, has also changed a lot. He has friends and not just people who take care of him. He is able to to recognize his own emotions, and he's able to express them to other people. He has changed and matured and grown a lot. And I'm really enjoying that. I'm really seeing. So in this book, he goes to visit his family, and I'm really enjoying seeing his relationship with his family. There is still a lot of hurt and pain between him and his parents and his siblings and how homophobic they are. At the same time, they have reconciled a lot and they treat each other differently. His father, especially, like, his mother was never like a specific problem. She actually may have even gotten worse now because she's homophobic, and before she didn't know he was gay because he didn't know. But his father and his brothers do treat him better than they did, and it's very interesting to see the relationship between them now that they respect him, but there's still this homophobia that and this past that is there in the relationships that has this tension in everything they say and do while they're with each other. And yet there is respect there. What I don't like is the lectures. Mercedes LeKay has this thing where she, like, in her older books, also in her newer books, it depends. It can actually really depend on the book. But she has this thing where there will be like a character who lectures the people like on how they should behave. Usually the main character, and usually it's like little enough that I can just pass over it. But sometimes it's large. Like in this book, Vanielle's companion, who is the spirit inside of a horse that he is bonded to, she starts lecturing him, and it's really annoying. First of all, because it's long, and you can obviously tell this the author's opinion. And secondly, because like with almost everything Mercedes LeKay has an opinion on, I disagree with her. And look, this was published in the early 1990s, so things have changed. It's been over 30 years since this book was published. Hopefully Mercedes LeKay has changed in her opinions about this thing, because it's something that I especially would not expect from her, because it does have, how do you say this, misandrous almost undertones, like, or maybe it's better to say sexist, this underlying idea of men can't be hurt sexually by women. And I know that from reading other books of hers that she doesn't believe that. But sometimes, like, we have something that we may not believe, but we've grown up, we've lived and being told these messages all the time, and so there are parts that we may not have realized that fit into this narrative. Narrative is a weird word. That fit into this belief that we don't believe in. So, but yeah, I really hated that part specifically, but it's mostly gone now. It was just like, it was like a whole conversation, but it passed. But the thing is that Danielle keeps on thinking about it, so it does come up more. and that is annoying me. But other than that, I'm really enjoying this book. I think it is a little. This whole series seems to be a little. How do I put this? Telling us about the characters, not the main characters, but about the characters who are not Vaniel or Ifandes, who's his companion, what the author wants us to think, and not necessarily showing it. Sometimes it is shown, like within his father, he's a full character. We're totally. Well, this is actually a bad example because he is a well-developed character. He's three-dimensional. He's one of my favorite characters in the book. I think he might be actually my favorite character in the book. But let's say Jervis, who is his arms master and physically abused Vaniel when Vaniel was a kid. Now, Jervis is not three-dimensional. He's just there to have someone physically abuse Vaniel. And he's very rigid. The only personality trait we really have of him is that he's rigid, he likes power. That's all we know about him. But what the narrator, it's written in third person, there's no specific narrator, but what the narrator of the book tells us about him matches what happens in the book. We're told he's a jerk who likes power. We see that happens with his actions in the book. But there are other characters like Vaniel's mother and his brother Mikhail who were told one thing, and we don't really see that happen in the book. So, and this was also in the first book. I mentioned a bit about Vaniel's mother. This is also now happening in this book, specifically with Mikhail. So that's not great. But I am really enjoying all of Vaniel's interactions with his family. Especially with Within, and also with Mikhail. If I ignore that bit of how Mikhail's described versus how he acts, doesn't really match up, I am really enjoying also Vaniel's interactions with Mikhail. So far, I'm liking this book a lot better than the first one. Hopefully, that continues. So I'm now 195 pages into Magic's Promise, and we have a new character who is very much obviously going part of some plot, some conspiracy. Now the plot is still being set up extremely slowly. I don't mind, partially because I know I anticipated this. Like I said, most of Mercedes Laquet's books, trilogies, especially the early ones, are set up. First book, emotional development, second book, more emotional development, third book, plot. But also because I am interested in the character stuff happening in the book. So Vaniel, our main character, is getting to know so this is the first time he's really been back to his family's house since he was kicked out at age 16. It's 12 years, 15, I think. It's 12, 13 years later. He's 28. And so he's really getting to know people anew sometimes from an adult perspective. And I find it interesting, even though I don't always. I found there was this one thing that, on one hand, I was like, in real life it would have annoyed me, and it would have annoyed me enough in real life if it happened to me. Obviously, other people do what they want. It would have annoyed me enough in real life that a tiny, teensy bit annoys me in the book. But on the other hand, I really do like reading about it and seeing Vaniel's perspective. And I think it's a very interesting way to think about the things that did happen to Vaniel. What I'm not liking is, again, the sexual relationships. Like, at the beginning of this book, there was like this moment where something seemed that Mercedes like, hey, remember that 12-year-olds aren't really having sex? And that thread has continued, but now there's a new 16-year-old character, and Danielle's like, oh, I'm so attracted to him. And like, okay, you know what? Some 16-year-olds do look older than they are. A lot of them look like little kids, a lot of them look older. It's an age where where they might look quite mature depending on the 16-year-old. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is Vanielle being like, oh, I could lie with him. Like, how do I explain it? Basically, this kid comes and asks Vanielle to be his lover. And Vanielle does have a few moments of hesitation of like, should I say yes? And obviously he says no. But I didn't like the fact that he says no, the reason that he says no, none of the reasons for him saying no are that's a 16-year-old and you're 28. That did bother me. And this weird young sexual stuff is going to continue to bother me in this series, I think. What else? Oh, yes. So Vanielle's mother, Lady Teresa, is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters out of spite. So she isn't really a character that appears a lot, but Mercedes Laquet obviously does not like her for some reason that I cannot understand why. She basically just keeps on saying, "Oh, she doesn't really love her kids. She's just using them." And then, which is not true. Like, and then she said that in the first book a lot, and even in the first book was obviously not true. She did defend Vanielle to his father. Like Vanielle, I can understand that Vanielle believed that was because she wanted something, but from an outside perspective, we can see that there's nothing that she can get if through defending Vanielle except Vanielle. She loves Vanielle. He's her son. In this book, that wasn't touched upon at all anyway, to confirm that or to deny that, like in the narrative. But the narrator, keeps going on about like through Vanielle, yes. So maybe this is Vanielle's fault, but she it's just like she's like the author seems to have like this hate for her because she behaves in an inappropriate way for her age, and like she's allowed. You may find it cringy. You may not want to be friends with a person who behaves that way, but it's not like a flaw. It's not this deep moral failing. It's not a moral failing at all. It's just a personality trait. It may have to do with her having low self-esteem, but that's also not a moral failing. Of course, it's better that she would have high self-esteem, but it's not a moral failing to have low self-esteem, and I know that you know this. But, so I like her out of spite, but also she is genuinely a good person. Like I said, she loves her kids. She defended Vanielle. We could see she like because she isn't because of the way she behaves, she made our new character extremely uncomfortable. And the second she realized it, she was like, "Oh no, I need to stop. Not only do I need to stop, I need to make things better." So yeah, I really like her, even though she hardly appears, because she's a good person and out of spite. Yeah, but that's what it has been so far, and I am enjoying the bits of plot that we are getting. And I actually do kind of like that it's going slow. Also, our new character, like I said, he's going to be. There's obviously a lot of plot that has led up to where he is right now. We just don't know it, and he has forgotten it. So, and it seems that at least some of that plot either has to do with or has brought him to this point of like terrible trauma So we also have to see his emotional development. Plus, I assume in the future we'll be getting more of what's going on with the plot. We did get another tiny hint, and I have I have ideas about that hint. We do also have some other hints. I don't really have a lot of ideas about them, but I do have an idea about that hint. So I'm curious to see if I'm right or not. Okay, so now I'm 242, 241, I think 242 pages through Magic's Promise. And I'm here to just say one thing, because now the topic has come up, or a scene, or rather, characters' reactions to another character's emotional state has come up. It's really, really annoying me. And I just realized what is Mercedes Lakay's very strong belief that has always annoyed me through older books from well, not the very first ones I read because it actually did not come up in that one, but the second series I read of hers that, well, it did come up a little in that one, but not as strongly, and you could kind of see it in a different way. But in a lot of series, she has this idea that you can force people to heal from trauma. And you can't. You can help people heal from trauma, but they're gonna, first of all, you need to take in their emotional state, and that's the difference between helping and forcing. Helping, you're gonna try to understand where the person is and who they are, obviously, and see what would help them the most. Forcing is just you have to get better from your trauma. And maybe the way that Vanielle and the other characters are going about trying to heal this character from his trauma would work for some people. I can see it working for some people who would need to get out, to be shaken a bit, to get out of their own head. It's not going to work for everybody, and it's very much, they're not really thinking about who this character is, what would work for him. They're just thinking about he needs to stop being traumatized. Oh, and the other thing, I'm not sure, this is annoying me. Vanielle is kind of dumb. He's not he's academically intelligent, but he's not very good at thinking things through. Someone tells him something is going to happen or that something has happened, he's like, yep, that's what happened. Unless it's even honestly, even if it's against his moral code of if he were thinking alone about what happened and was maybe I should think a little more about this, but someone tells him, he's like, yeah, that's what happened, and he does not think anymore. He's got blinders on, and it's really frustrating me in a situation. The bad guy is Vedrick. Vedrick did the terrible, horrible thing. It's so obvious. And I understand that it's obviously the characters are in it, but Vanielle is just so, but the other characters do have the ability to think, Vanielle tells them what he was told, and the other characters do have the ability to think, oh, it might not be like this. There might be other reasons. I understand it's not necessarily obvious to them that Vedrick did it, even though it's kind of obvious. It's for the plot. It's obvious. But Vanielle has these blinders on because he was told one thing, and because he was told that, he's gonna believe it. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I don't really like Vanielle as a character. I think he's annoying. He's not so annoying that I'm going to DNF the books, especially because I really want to know what happens in ways that I could not understand from the wiki, Valdemar wiki. Not the greatest wiki out there. Sorry, guys. But he definitely is a character that I don't think he's unrealistic, but he annoys me because he's got those blinders on, and because he just doesn't really think unless someone forces him to. And then he overthinks. He's like, oh my god, what if I'm actually a horrible person because someone commented this one flaw that I have. I'm like, yes, it's realistic. I just don't enjoy reading about this character. Plenty of people, let's say plenty of people are watching this. 0 people are watching this, but but let's say plenty of people were watching this. They'd probably be like, there are definitely people who would be like, that you're describing sounds just up my alley. Not up mine at all. I finished Magic's Promise 2 days ago, and the ending was really satisfying to me. I would understand if people didn't like it because it's a very unhappy ending for, not actually for the book. For the book, it's pretty happy, but for what's going to happen in the next book. But the thing is, we know to read this series, you have to read the Arrows of the Queen series, and we kind of know what happens to Vanielle at the end of this series from that series. And like there is an added emotional weight in the end of this book in the prediction of what's going to happen in the last book, but it's a tragedy. So if you go into it knowing it's a tragedy, it's a good ending, I think. Now, as for the whole book, the problem is it's one of those books where I like the beginning, I like the ending, and I didn't like the middle for a variety of reasons. So I can't say I like the book, but I can't exactly say I disliked it either. I did, like I said earlier, that the reason I'm not DNFing it is blah blah blah, but that was not the only reason. Like, even if I didn't want to read to get to the end of the series, I still probably wouldn't have DNF'd this book. Like, it's not a book that I disliked. Like, it's not only a book that I didn't dislike extremely. It's not a book that I disliked in general, but it's not a book I liked either. Kind of my liking of the end and the beginning and my disliking of the middle combine into this sort of weird gray neutral zone. But that is all for Magic's Promise, and then hopefully I get Magic's Price out. Ooh, you know what? Technically, it's the 21st, so I should check to see if my hold has come in. That's a good idea. Hello, coming at you from my phone and not my computer because I am exhausted. But more importantly, Magic's Price has finally come in from the library, and I'm finally able to read it. So I started it finally this afternoon. I've read 92 pages, and this is definitely my favorite of all of the trilogy. And it's definitely still not my favorite series and will never be anywhere near to my favorite series in all the Voldemort books and all the Voldemort series. So starting off with plot. If I were a mainly plot reader, look, this book, there are so many plot holes. If I were a mainly plot reader, I probably would have DNF'd it, despite the fact that, ironically, it's very important to plot in later books. But I have understood now, finally, at the third book, I've understood that this series plot is incidental and it's really more about Vanielle and watching his emotional growth. So let's talk about Bard Stefan. So this is really mild spoilers, but if you've read the first series, then you listen to the first part of this video, you can probably guess what this is going to be. And after I say it, you can oh, I would have guessed that. And it's not spoilers for the first series. So anyways, so in the first series, we learn that when Vanielle dies, he is life bonded to a bard named Stefan. And in the first book in this series, he life bonds to a guy named Tylendel. And so I've been waiting throughout the second half of the first book and the second book for Bard Stefan to arrive. And my hypothesis up until now was that Stefan would be reincarnated, a reincarnation of Tylendel. And that's how come he and Vaniel would be life bonded. So at this point, and that would mean like Stefan would be like around 15, 16 years younger than Vaniel. So at this point in the third book, Stefan is 19 and Vaniel is early 40s, like somewhere between 40 and 42, I think, maybe even up to 45, mid 40s. But I don't think Stefan is any sort of reincarnation of Tylendel. Like well, it was kind of hard to get to know Tylendel because of the quickness of how the relationship happened. But he does not seem similar to Tylendel. However, I really like how the relationship is being built up. Like I said, one of the things I really did not like about the first book was how quickly the relationship between Tylendel and Vaniel happened. That was just like click, and then they're in love. And for various reasons, that is not going to happen in this relationship. Stefan definitely has a crush on Vaniel, and it is getting stronger as he gets to know him. But very much at first it was like hero worshipping / lust, / oh, this is like the one guy I haven't betted, and now it's developing. And because Vaniel doesn't want, while he's attracted to Stefan, he actually does not want a boyfriend or anything, and he doesn't want to have sex. So he forces Stefan to get to know him. And so we actually get to see the relationship build. And I really like the way that it's building and the fact that we get to see it build. But I also like the fact that it kind of almost started, not quite, enemies. And now they're like friends. And I assume we'll at some point get to lovers. Now, the thing I don't like is Stefan's attitude towards sex. Like, he realizes that Vaniel is attracted to him and that Vaniel won't have sex with him. And he keeps on being like, why? How could that happen? How? Oh my goodness, why would that happen? And like, I know he's only 19, but even a 19-year-old should realize that there are reasons that people would not want to have sex despite being attracted to someone. Like, and I think it more annoys me. Like, it would annoy me also in the first place, but it might also be more annoying me because I'm reading a different book where literally every time a man and a woman meet, their eyes touch. That sounded weird. Oh, I'm too tired to think about their eyes meet. And they're like, oh my god, I'm in lust. And it's just, so I think it is making me like a little more annoyed at that. But something I would still be annoyed at, especially because like the attitude towards sex, in my opinion, was very weird throughout the series. But overall, like I said, I'm really liking. This is definitely my favorite in the book so far, and I'm really liking it despite all the plot holes. Good morning. So last night I reached page 182 of Magic's Price, and let's talk about the romance. Because I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of disappointed, but I'm not super disappointed as I would have expected, because I did also expect it, because I do know how Mercedes Lackey writes romances, at least maybe in general. I feel like, no, I don't think I really, despite the fact that Elemental Magic series has a lot of romances, like it's based around romances, I don't really like the romances there either. I don't like the way she writes them. So I'm disappointed but expected it, because after the first few scenes of Vaniel and Stefan getting to know each other that we actually saw, the rest was all just kind of mentioned, and we didn't actually get to see it. And then Stefan and Vaniel went on a journey together, and we did get to see Vaniel's thoughts. So that was nice, because we had only really had Stefan's thoughts until then. We had just had Vaniel's thoughts about how terrified he was of Vaniel of having a boyfriend or anyone close to him, but enjoyed Stefan being his friend. But then finally, they are now together. Stefan literally locked Vaniel in a room to actually talk about their feelings, which is funny, but not something I would recommend in real life. So yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't actually get to see it grow more, but it's also what I expected. So that's the romance part. Then there's the plot. Oh, you can hear the cat really well playing with the marble. The plot, I don't really have much to say about it, other than, again, there's definitely interesting hints of what's going on, and like there were some very dramatic scenes. I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of over the way these books, this trilogy is set up of emotion, 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 dramatic plot. Emotion, 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 dramatic plot. So like it's while I'm enjoying the plot, I'm over the way the books are set up. And also, again, okay, Vaniel doesn't annoy me, but and neither did Teresa and Within his parents, but the adult and the heralds are getting normal, but the adults are still supposed to be like, oh, the most wonderful people in the world, the Teledras. They're still super annoying. Like, at least someone talks sense into them. And I understand why they reacted the way they did, but I don't know. I just like it's kind of interesting this series because I think Mercedes like he did it on purpose. And I just came in with different expectations, so I find it annoying because you took all these people that are supposed to be like these wonderful people, and that's what we learned from the last book, and then she set it up so they make a lot of big mistakes while still trying to be good people. And while it's very realistic, it's not her usual thing, so I didn't come in expecting it, and I think that's why it's annoying me. In general, I would like it, but in this case, because it's not what I expected, it's not what I'm ready for, it's annoying me a lot. Anyways, I'll probably see you either in another 100 pages or when I finish the book. Good morning. I'm now up to page 270 of Magic's Price, which means that I only have 66 pages left. So basically, everything that happens now, we know the gist and even some details of what's going to happen. But honestly, this is the part I'm most excited for. Like, this is the part that we knew pretty much what was going to happen from the first series in this world, which was written before this, and you need to read before this, but chronologically happens before this series. But this is the most interesting part. Like, for me personally, when I read a prologue, what is interesting to me is what happened to make the world in the original book like it is. And with Valdemar, it's kind of weird because there are multiple prologues, but definitely, but so, but definitely, they still like kind of build up the world to be like it is. Also, the former prologues, founding of Valdemar and the Mage War trilogy. The Mage series does not. It's its own thing. It's not a prologue. So I guess that's because that's the definition of a prologue. That like you can have books that chronologically happen before, but they that aren't a prologue because they don't tell how the world in the original book got to be like it is. And but prologue books will tell how the world got to be like it is or how the character got to be like they are. So this is a prologue book or a prologue series, but it's like taking a while to get to the main point. So this is the point I'm most excited for. Now, like there have been things until now that have like kind of built up the world as it is, but unfortunately they were things that she later chose to change in the Mag series. So it's really annoying to me when authors change things, like even dates. I will remember the dates, and I hate when they change it. So that part was actually kind of honestly annoying for me to read, even though I understand why she changed it. Another reason it was annoying for me to read was because it didn't make that much sense in this book. And obviously, like, as she got older and better at writing, she realized that, and that's why she changed it in this case. And in a lot of cases, I think the things that she changed, this world, she's still writing and publishing in it, and it started coming out in the 80s. So, yeah. But this part, I think, like, this is the part. This is the part that changes everything in the world of Valdemar. But so, but it's also like, this is the, what's it called? Apotheosis, something like that. This is the high point of, this is the crisis of the series. So I already know technically what's going to happen, but I'm very excited to read, like, how she writes it. Already so far, even on the ways that they're on the journey, I'm enjoying it a lot. Hi. So, I finished Magic's Price, and I am disappointed. Like, I was waiting this whole series basically to find out how Vanielle did this thing that is spoilers, but is huge. Like, it's like of epic proportions and impacts the basically every single thing that happens after his death. And it was like, it was nothing. Like, not only was it so small, it wasn't even a good explanation. Like, that doesn't even make sense. And in general, the series was so full of plot holes. Like, and it really annoys me because this could have been such a good series. Like, if this were not full of plot holes, this would have been such a good series. You know, like, but even though I am not a plot person, I'm more of a character driven person. The amount of plot holes in the series basically ruined the series for me. Like, not that there were definitely things I liked. I talked about them. I did like the ending. Like, if I don't think about, um, how the fact of what, the thing that I was talking about, the thing of epic proportions, which actually doesn't happen in the ending. It happens earlier in the book, and I didn't realize it because I was like, oh, it can't be that tiny small thing. Uh, I it must connect to something bigger at the end. But if I don't think about that, I do quite like the ending. But again, and then at the very epilogue, there's a plot hole. Like, why end the epilogue with a plot hole? I feel like she had, like, this vision of what she wanted, and she didn't have editors and she didn't have good editors. So this series as a whole, I didn't dislike it. Like, if I guess I were rating the series as a whole, I would rate it maybe 2.75 stars. I didn't dislike it, but the plot holes combined with, like, the insta-love in the first book just really drew it down for me. I'm glad I read it, and, like, it's made me eager to, like, maybe hopefully pick up, reread the other series that come after it, chronologically, not in publishing order. But, so I'm glad I read it, but definitely in all of the Valdemar books, this is, like, the series maybe I like the least. No. I didn't really like Elspeth series, but I didn't understand it, so I can't say that I didn't like it. Darian series I really didn't like because I liked it. I liked it less than this because I didn't like Darian's character. So I'm still, you can see, like, I'm a very character driven person because, but yeah, this is my second least liked series in this world, unfortunately. But I am glad I read it. So that's the end of the vlog. I read all 3 books of The Last Herald Mage, I did enjoy discovering some of the things, like the ending of why it's called The Last Herald Mage. Crazy. Really like that part. But yeah, not the best series in the world. And definitely not Mercedes Lacaze's series. So that's it. See you next time.